Good morning, everybody. Today we will start chapter 18, section 1, which is called about magnets and magnetism. But before we start, we must know the objectives of this session. The first one is describe the properties of a magnet. Second one, explain why some materials are magnetic and some aren't. Let's start our lesson by the discovery of a magnet. More than 2000 years ago, Greek in a part of Turkey called Magnesia discovered a mineral attract things that made of iron called magnetite. In a part of Turkey, the region called Magnesia, Greek discovered the mineral that attract or hold or pick up materials that make of iron. Called this mineral according to the region which is covered in it magnetite. From here they named magnet, or the word magnet come from here. What is a magnet, or what is the meaning of magnet? Magnet is any material that attracts iron or anything made of iron. Magnet, any material that attracts iron or things made of iron. As we know all, when I buy a magnet and close it near any iron or any material that made of iron, they will pick up it. Okay, so the magnet, any material that attracts iron or anything is made of iron. Now we will know the properties of a magnet. All magnets around the world have three properties. The first one, all magnets have two poles. Second one, exert force in each other. Third one, surrounded by a magnetic field. So the properties of a magnet, all magnets around the world have three properties. The first one have two poles. Second one, exert force on each other. Third one, surrounded by a magnetic field. And our lesson today, we will talk about each one by details. The first one, magnetic poles. Just imagine, when I buy a magnet, bar magnet, or horse magnet, U-shaped magnet, all magnets around the world, I can see two colors, blue, red, or NS, two poles, or two parts in the magnet. This is called magnetic poles. And when I hold or when I close a magnet near the iron material or anything that make from iron, we can see that the magnets don't have the effects at all the parts of it. The effect of the magnet aren't the same throughout the magnet. For example, we can see that the magnet pick up more than iron near the ends or at the ends of a magnet. At the middle there is less iron or anything that made of iron. So the magnetic effects aren't the same throughout a magnet. The strongest effects are near the ends of a magnet, or the magnet pick more than iron or anything that made from iron near the end of a magnet. These ends of a magnet called magnetic poles. So what is the meaning of magnetic poles? Magnetic pole is our point on a magnet that have opposite magnetic qualities. Magnetic poles are points of or on a magnet that have opposite magnetic qualities. Magnetic pole, we said that magnetic effect aren't the same through the magnet, and the strongest effect of the magnet are near the end of a magnet, or that is called magnetic poles. What is the meaning of magnetic poles? Magnetic poles are points on a magnet that have opposite magnetic qualities. Now, we said before, when I buy a magnet, can I see only one pole? Or N, S only? Red, blue only? No. So the magnetic poles are always in a pair, as never we find a magnet with one pole. We can find magnet with one pole. All magnets around the world have two poles or poles found in pairs. Two poles of a magnet. North pole, south pole. That is named in a magnet NS in a blue color and red color. North pole, south pole. North pole that ends up pointing to the earth. And south pole, the opposite end of the magnet point to the south. When I hold or pick up a magnet in the air, we can see that one end of this magnet pointing up to the north of the earth, this is called the magnetic north pole, and another end which opposite to the south direction of the earth, that is south pole. So the two poles of a magnet, north pole and south pole. Second property of a magnet is the magnetic force. What is the magnetic force, or the magnetic force between magnets depend on what? Before we start and we study the magnetic force, we must know the magnetic force between magnets depend on how poles of a magnet line up. As line poles, we know all things that are like repel, and opposite or dislike things or poles attract. So the magnetic force between a magnets depend on how poles of a magnet line up. Like poles repel and opposite pole attract. From here, what is the magnetic force? We can find the definition of the magnetic force from this point as the magnetic force is a force of attraction or repulsion generated by moving or spinning electric charge. The magnetic force is the force of attraction or repulsion generated by moving or spinning electric charge. And we said that magnetic force between magnets depend on how poles of a magnet line up, like repel and dislike or opposite attract. Now we can discuss. In this picture, the first two pictures, if I hold the north pole of two magnets or south pole of two magnets as like poles, we can find that the magnetic force will push the magnets apart or will repel. And the third picture, when I hold the north pole of one magnet close to south pole of another magnet that is opposite poles or opposite things, the magnetic force will attract or pull the magnets together. So the magnetic force we said that is between the magnet depend on how poles line up. We said that like poles repel and dislike or opposite pole attract. Here show me to explain that if I hold the north poles of two magnet and another magnet, and close the north pole of the first magnet with the north pole of second magnet, or the south pole of first magnet to the south pole of second magnet, that is like poles, we can find that a magnetic force pull or push the magnet apart, repel. But if I hold the north pole of one magnet close to the south pole of the second magnet, the magnetic force between them will attract or pull the magnet together. The third property of the magnet, the magnetic field. What is the magnetic field, or what is the meaning of magnetic field? Definition of the magnetic field is the region around the magnet in which magnetic force can act. We said that is, we have a magnet, okay? And all magnets have magnetic force. And do we know the magnetic force and the definition or the meaning of the magnetic force? So, the region that the magnet put in it, or the region surrounding the magnet, and the electric force, the magnetic force appear or act or exert. This region is called magnetic field. So what is the meaning of magnetic field? Is the region around the magnet in which magnetic force can act. In this picture show how a magnetic field form or the shape of the magnetic field. We can see that the lines of the magnetic field extend from the north pole to the south pole, making a circle or making lines. So the shape of the magnetic field can be shown with line drawn from the north pole to the south pole. As we see here, the magnetic field shape or drawing with line extend from the north pole to the south pole. This line is called magnetic field lines. So the lines that extend from or drawing from the north pole to the south pole and form or showing the magnetic field is called the magnetic field line. The closer the magnetic field line or the stronger the magnetic field is. When we find the magnetic field line close together, the magnetic field here will be strong, as when I find or drawing the line have a gap or strong or more gap between each other, we will find the magnetic field low or weak. But the closer the magnetic field line are, the stronger the magnetic field is. Where the magnetic field line are closer, we can find that the magnetic field line are closest together at the two poles or at the end of the magnet. Why? Because we said here before that in the two poles or the two ends of the magnetic force is strong, or the strongest effect of the magnetic were in the two poles or near the end of the magnet. So the line around the magnet are closest together at the two poles where the magnetic force is strongest. From here we can say that the magnetic field and the magnetic force is strongest at the two ends or the two poles of a magnet, where the magnetic field line closest together at the two poles or two ends of a magnet. Before we turn or going to the cause of the magnetism or another objective of this session, we must make a summary from the other. We talk about the discovery of a magnet, and we said that the Greek in a part of Turkey called Magnesia discovered a mineral that attract all things that made of iron, called the thing according to the region magnetite. And from here comes the word magnet, and we know the magnet and the properties of a magnet. All magnets around the world have three properties, have two poles, and we said that all magnets have two poles. We can find the magnet with only one pole, north or south. All magnets have north pole, south pole, okay? And then we talk about the magnetic force and said that the strongest force of the magnet at near of the end of the magnet or at the two poles of a magnet. And then we talk about the magnetic field and know what is the magnetic field and the shape of the magnetic field and the magnetic field line. So now we will talk about the cause of a magnetism, the reason of a magnetism. We all have a question in our minds. Why some materials, when I close the magnet near it, attract it or the magnet pick it up, and why another not? Why some materials as a paper clip, iron nail, or any materials from the iron attracted to the magnet, and another materials as a plastic, paper, aluminum foil aren't attracted to the magnet? Or why a magnet pick up paper clip, iron nail, and not pick up plastic, paper, or aluminum foil? This depends on the materials atom. This depends on the materials atom. So the materials attracted to the magnet or aren't attracted to the magnet depends on the materials atom. And this we will talk about it in another session or the next week, inshallah. Today we talk about the discovery of a magnet, and we know the discovery in a magnet more than 2000 years ago in a part of Turkey called Magnesia. They discovered the magnetite, and we talk about definition of a magnet and know that the magnet is any material that attract iron or anything that made from iron, and properties of a magnet that all magnets have two poles, all magnets exert a force on each other, all magnets surrounded by a region called magnetic field. Okay, then think about the causes of the magnetism and know the reason from why materials attracted or hold to the magnet and another materials aren't. If anyone don't understand what I say, contact me directly in WhatsApp. Thanks everybody.